was a roller coaster week for Toronto FC as they kicked off their 2021 MLS campaign. Massive highs of eliminating Club Leon in the CONCACAF Champions League, and of course the lows of losing to rival CF Montreal in their MLS opener. We'll talk about both games ahead on this edition of Waking the Red Weekly, presented by Footy Talks. We'll also address some pressing matters, see what I did there, and preview this weekend's clash with the Vancouver Whitecaps. My name is Mitchell Tierney, and speaking of the Caps, we'll be joined in about 15 minutes or so by a man who scored in their inaugural game for them, as well as spent time with Toronto FC and the Canadian men's national team. Terry Dunfield will be our guest on this week's show, and I could not be more excited to talk to him about all things TFC. But first, as always, the main men, Jeffrey P. Nesker, Michael Singh. It's been an insane week in life, in soccer circles. How you guys doing this week?
Man, I can't believe that. I think the last time we did this show in particular, TFC didn't even beat Club Leon yet. If I'm not mistaken, it feels like forever ago, doesn't it? But that being said, like I'm looking forward to this. We got a lot to talk about, and I'm super excited to talk to Terry as well.
Just the word super right now gives me hives. Can we avoid the word super in any connotation? I know it's not on the rundown and we're not going to talk about it, but let's try awesome, rad, brilliant. Any of those are a good sub. I think super is off the table today. So
that's a good show. Good show.
Absolutely. Well, let's start on a positive note here, because we could use some positivity right now in the soccer world, and let's talk about Toronto FC beating Club Leon, because as much as we're disappointed that they started the season in the way they did, that's a massive result for them, of course, beating the Mexican champions 3-2 on aggregate. They're moving on to play against Cruz Azul. That'll happen next week, so we'll have a nice preview show for you guys ahead of that game, potentially at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa, Florida. But what a fantastic performance from Toronto FC from start to finish. I think again, seeing their lineup, and again seeing, they had even more injuries from the week before. There was a lot of concern going into that match, but instead of sitting back and instead of defending the lead on aggregate they had, it was very impressive to see Toronto FC come out in that first half, really put the gears to Club Leon, who didn't really have an answer, did they?
No, and it's kind of fitting that we are talking about Club Leon before we move on to this weekend, because it does serve as sort of a humble reminder of, hey, this club still did accomplish a significant feat with midweek. And in terms of that Club Leon match, like I think you pointed this out on Twitter, Mitch, like they were stubborn. Club Leon was very stubborn to sort of adjust to what Toronto FC was offering there. Maybe that is a bit of credit to Toronto FC keeping things on lock in terms of the game tape. Club Leon wasn't really knowing what to expect, so they went in playing their game. But still, I was surprised to see Club Leon not really change their mentality, change their game plan whatsoever. But credit to Toronto FC, credit to Toronto FC's young guns and their will to battle and get that result.
I read some scouting reports and watched some webcasts, so I wasn't necessarily that excited that Club Leon didn't adapt tactically, because I had heard mentioned several times that might be their Achilles heel, that they just don't have it in them. They sort of have the same game plan and run out the same kind of system, and they just try and brute force their way through games sometimes. So maybe that was really good tactics on Chris Armas's part.
Yeah, and it could be there could be a bigger test, this upcoming Tuesday. It could be the real, or next Tuesday. It could be the real test when they take on Cruz Azul, who's currently first in Liga MX right now. So maybe Club Leon, who was 8th place when Toronto FC were facing them, maybe they actually were. Yeah. Maybe they actually were having a down year, and maybe they were trying to figure things out. So
I don't want to. They were off the back of three league wins. I'm not doing Liga MX fans' job for them, man. That was a full strength team aside from Campbell, and we soundly beat them, and we should celebrate it for the victory that it was. It was at altitude. It was preseason. It was all the things that we usually have stacked in the loser's lament when we get our clocks cleaned by these guys, and it didn't affect us in any way, shape, and form. So I'm going to celebrate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. They should celebrate that one. It was well deserved. It's not just one leg, it's 2 legs. They did the job in Mexico, so I don't want to take anything away from them. But let's see what happens on next Tuesday, because that will be a bigger test.
Absolutely.
Because their next test that they fared, which I'm sure we'll get into shortly, was against Montreal, and that didn't go so well. So I think that it's almost like a clean slate now heading into this quarterfinal match.
When you say clean slate, I take a tiny bit of issue just because now there's tape. Everybody's got tape. And, I don't want to overstate the importance of hitting Leon with the surprise attack, but I also don't want to ignore it. We need to see, and we said this on our post-game show, we need to see now how Toronto works when they don't necessarily have the element of surprise anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great plug there, Jeff, by the way. We did launch a Waking the Red weekly post-game show, so we're excited about that. After every TFC match this season, at least every MLS match, we'll be going live about 30-45 minutes after the match, and we're going to try and break down everything that happened. Obviously, a lot of it will be reactionary, knee-jerk takes, but hey, the more content, the better. TFC Live, am I right?
I was impressed, man. I really enjoyed that. It felt like I was talking to two KJ disciples. I did not expect that level of tactical news for the post game show. So while I was flipping through my screen caps and my mute videos where I accidentally had the cursor recorded, I was very, very impressed. I think that there's a cool vibe, at least in episode 1, that I wasn't expecting, and so. Long may it continue.
And I hope Will Dunn's talking about this. He says, "Hook it to my veins." I'm sure he's talking about the podcast. I'm sure
he's talking about the social media post from TFC earlier today, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
Well, of course, as much as we want to dwell on the positives, there was the start to the MLS season for Toronto FC against CF Montreal in Fort Lauderdale. They got behind early, and they just kind of looked off the pace for the entire 90 minutes. Some bright moments, but too little, too late at the end of the match. You guys obviously have broken down this game in full over in the post game show, but with a couple of days to think about it now, what are kind of your takeaways from this match?
Go ahead, Jeff.
If Schaff had scored in the 6th minute, it would have been a totally different game, and he was very, very close. So. The scorched earth takes, the TFC's broken takes, miss me with those. This game was a lot closer than we thought it was. Even knee-jerk reaction. Luke Singh had a howler, but how many times have how many times did Seba have a howler? Come on, guys! It's okay to have a howler sometimes. Yeah,
it happens for sure.
Absolutely.
And I want to, instead of us talking about it again on our show, I want to actually give some credit to Ryan Lindsay, Waking the Red, who had a fantastic article today, and he broke down that loss and took away like 3 major talking points from it. So I do highly recommend you check out that article. It is a deep dive into it, and he has some great tactical analysis. I really, really, really do recommend reading that article. And I guess the biggest takeaway for me, now that I've had some time to sit on it, I still am scratching my head over that starting 11. I'm still scratching my head at the fact that there was no rotation there. Granted, there were a lot of guys out, so it might have been tough to rotate some pieces. That being said, there was no changes at all to the starting 11 from midweek. I said this on the podcast, but we're not trying to win the MLS, supporter shield this week versus Montreal. We need to see some more rotation there. Where is Jaden Nelson? What is happening with Jaden Nelson?
Where is Jaden Nelson?
Why can't he get some minutes here? Why can't he get a look? Because there's definitely room for rotation. And I hope that doesn't come back to bite him. I hope that doesn't wear the team down a little bit, because obviously that is a concern with Armas's high pressing, high energy style of play and high energy style of training sessions as well.
Yeah, this is also another thing with just about any tactical style, but also the high press is getting down early gets you in trouble, right? Because then the opposition doesn't have to take the same kind of risks that they would have to on the ball. That allows you to, force those crucial turnovers with the high press. So, allowing those 2 goals early obviously was not helpful to Toronto FC at all in terms of what they wanted to do in that game. And yeah, you mentioned it. They looked tired. I mean, we were talking about, and a huge part of it was the camera angle, because obviously the Club Leon game at Wide World of Sports was, a bit of an narrower focus, but the field just looked so huge,
so big,
and I don't think that wasn't entirely because of the overhead angle. It was also just because they found ways early and often to break Toronto FC's press, and it made it look like Toronto FC was playing incredibly narrow that entire match.
Yeah, when you're playing with a single, when you're playing with a single pivot at the back there, like Ralph Priso was, and he pushes up sometimes, that gap between your center backs and your central midfielders gets way too big. And Mihalovic, if I can still get his name right,
I think you're doing
Mihalovic. That's good.
Yeah.
He exploited that space. He played the number 10 area right between the gaps of the center backs and their holding midfielders, and that's why he looked great out there. Not to take anything away from him, he had a fantastic game, but TFC didn't really make it difficult on him. I think Montreal sort of found the perfect formation to counteract what TFC was throwing at the midfield, which is that almost. It was a diamond at first, and then they switched to a flat four. But regardless, the space behind Michael Bradley and Ralph Priso was exploited far too often.
Acres of space, yeah.
Michael Bradley got exposed as himself a little bit when we looked at him backtracking a bunch. Like his pace was not there to cover up that ground, especially when Ralph Priso gets caught high or gets caught turning the ball over or whatever it is. So again, growing pains. This is the first MLS match for Chris Armas. I'm just interested to see how this team rotates its squad going forward, because we do have a congested schedule coming up.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of squad rotation, I think this might be a good time to get into the Michael Singh injury report and give us some updates on what's
I totally cut you off, Mitch.
Video.
Sorry, but I
knew it was coming.
I guess we have a new intro video to this, I guess, great segment, let's call it. I wish we were just talking about better things, Yeah. I guess first thing I'll mention for injury-wise for this team is I do expect Jonathan Osorio to be back. I think he was available before last match. I think Chris Armas said that. However, he had to serve his 1-game suspension for kicking out at a player against Nashville. He got a yellow card on that play, but the league reviewed it and deemed that it was worthy of a suspension. So that's why Jonathan Osorio wasn't able to play last game. I do expect him to be fully back into the mix. Question marks around, the status of Alejandro Pozuelo and Josie Altidore. Again, I think TFC, their focus right now is that CONCACAF Champions League. So I would be surprised to see either player get in versus Vancouver, unless they're 100% ready and they just want to get some minutes under the belt and shake the cobwebs off a little bit. Ayo Akinola, I think he's ready. He wasn't listed on the injury report. I think they were being a little precautious against Montreal, and I think he'll be back in some sort of capacity against Vancouver. And I guess we'll get into some of the negative news now. And that was this really surprising that Erickson Gallardo, he had to undergo surgery for an injury on his right groin. So he's out 4 to 6 weeks. And that's really disappointing because he looked like, I don't want to give him too much credit because it was like 20 minutes, but he looked a little bit of a different player. He looked a little bit more re-energized, and it looked like he was going to get a real shot under Chris Armas here. Clearly, the injury happens. He tried to even fight through it, but maybe that made it a little bit worse, and he's going to be sidelined for the next little bit. I'll move on to Julian Dunn. I don't have the exact name of the injury off by hand, but he's going to be out for a little bit of a longer term injury. He'll miss at least the next 5 MLS matches, which is probably why TFC signed Luke Singh as sort of some reassurance there. So let's hope that all is well with Julian. I don't want to speculate too much about how the conditions, because I just don't know too much about it. And Char as well is under that same boat. He's going to miss at least the next 5 MLS matches, but that's something we knew. The club was never going to rush Achara back after LCL and ACL surgery last July. So he'll be eased into the mix coming into the summer. Chris Mavinga, again, is a question mark as well. And I think that pretty much sums it up right now. That was pretty much a long segment.
The whole roster, yeah.
Wow. Yay.
Well, Chris Armas talked about this, and he was pretty candid with his response about why Toronto FC are dealing with so many injuries, right? He admitted his style of play is very, very demanding. I think on the Come On You Reds podcast, which one of his co-hosts, Terry Dunfield, will come on shortly for us. Chris Armas was asked, I guess, by Michael Bradley after one of the practices, where would you rate that practice in terms of intensity from 1 to 10? And Chris turned to him and said it was about an 8. And Michael Bradley's response was, well, for me, that was like a 25. So that just gives you, then Michael Bradley. We know the workhorse that Michael Bradley is, the engine that he is. So that gives you some insight into how intense some of those training sessions could be. It's going to take some adjustments, and along the way, yeah, they're going to pick up some knocks. We've seen this early on, and hopefully, it just when the team gets fitter, when the team builds some endurance under them, some stamina, that they can sustain some of these injuries and push through as opposed to taking some setbacks.
Yeah, it sounds like Terry's here, so we'll bring him on momentarily here. But yeah, certainly will be good to get some of those players back. I think tactically and just overall they've been missing. Osorio certainly, Mavinga as well have been some big misses here. So
huge.
Now joined by former Toronto FC midfielder, Canadian men's national team, TFC Academy coach, co-host of Come On You Reds. Wears a lot of hats, Mr. Terry Dunfield. Thanks so much for joining the show.
Thanks, Terry.
What's up, Mitch? Mike, Jeff, thanks so much for having me.
Of course, Terry.
Absolutely.
We're looking forward to this. Obviously, you have a lot of history here with both Vancouver and Toronto, with the matchup looking ahead to the weekend. And as Mitch said, you wear a lot of hats right now, so it's our pleasure to have you on.
No, just loving living in the Canadian soccer world right now. What have we been discussing? What have I missed?
Man, anything and everything.
Just setting the table. Just setting the table, Terry.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what an up and down week for Toronto FC this past week. They have the big highs of eliminating Club Leon from the Champions League, and then a bit of a disappointing start to the MLS season for them. What were your takes on the the week as a whole?
Ooh, right in the deep end, hey?
No softballs here.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's what the young guys are thinking too, or young players. There's really no in between sometimes in football, and I think we've seen that. Having said that, I don't know what you guys think, but I think I can give the guys a pass, and I think I can mitigate the performance that we saw against Montreal. I just think it was a real quick turnover. Our squad was thin. It's 2:00 in the Florida sun, and you're playing against your rivals that are prepared for just you, a little bit like us versus Lyon. And I think the way Montreal stacked up against us on the day, being so quick in transition, it just exposed, maybe where we were at physically, mentally, coming down from that high, and just some of the areas in our system that we need to work on. But big picture, super excited by those performances in Lyon. And I think I saw enough against Montreal, especially when it got hard, that the guys stuck with the system. And the data, the stats at halftime showed actually we weren't that far away. It was just a couple of, maybe mistakes were the difference.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned it there, like coming down for that midweek tie to the weekend. Every MLS club that competed in Champions League didn't pick up a victory this week. Toronto FC weren't alone in that regard. So, as you said, Terry, I think we can all agree that Toronto FC kind of deserves a pass from this weekend. But moving on, I wanted to, of course, talk about some of the young guns and specifically the Montreal game. We saw Jaquil Marcheruti. He picked up his first career MLS assist. I was reading a great article, by the way, from Josh Cloak of The Athletic. Great read on Jaquil Marcheruti. I highly recommend you go check that out. And Terry, I think you added some commentary in that feature as well. But I wanted to pick your brain a little bit about Jaquil because you're at TFC Academy coach, and it seems like you and him have this sort of unspoken relationship. What can you tell us about Jaquil that makes him so special?
Ooh, good one. I'd say all the coaches in the academy have great relationships with the players. I wouldn't just say it's myself, but I think you can even look at. I know a lot of the hard work was done by Richie Larea, but just Jack realizing in that moment to play a forward pass where many other players might just secure possession to get that assist led to the goal is indicative of how he plays and who he is as a person. That when it's on, he'll take risks, and I think he's got the personality and also the technique to back up what he sees. And when it's not on and the picture's difficult in front of him, then he'll keep the ball. And in a long-winded way, I'm saying he makes great decisions. He's got top technique, and this is a big one for young players. He'll take a chance, he'll take a risk, and more times than not, he'll execute.
Cool. Just to backtrack, I said this at the outset, but I think I agree with you. We were a lot closer in that Montreal game than we'd like to believe. And if Schaffelberg had scored in the 6th minute, I think it would have been an entirely different game. So, when a game turns on a moment like that, despite the scoreline, I think you can't give it a mulligan, but as close to a mulligan as possible. All right, Terry, I've put some gray matter into this question, so I hope you appreciate it.
I love living in the gray world.
I would if Coach Terry could visit Player Terry for only 5 minutes, when would you visit yourself, and what would you say to yourself?
Ooh, good one.
That's a great question.
How many moments am I allowed to pick?
The first one that came to your head. I mean, unless now you have a better idea.
Okay, maybe before I go, Jeff, what would be your moment? What would you go back to tell Jeff?
We got to break some unfortunate news here, Terry. Jeff, in between the touchlines. I don't know if that's a thing.
I played soccer when I was 6, and I picked daisies, and pretty much the only reason I did it was so I could go to McDonald's afterwards. So I don't necessarily know if there's a soccer question in there.
Were you the kid that ran the wrong way and shot on your own goal? Because that happens all the time. And
I might have written novels in my head. I was doing just about everything on the pitch but play actual soccer. So it was pretty fantastic.
I like the McDonald's motivation. I think that takes it all back to our childhood a little bit. Probably the one, there's probably 2 moments when I asked to leave Manchester City with 3 years left on my contract to just get out into the world and become a pro. I just lost faith in the system a little bit. I trust the system and maybe wait for my opportunity. Maybe things might be a little bit different. And then just those couple of minutes before getting injured, it was a nothing injury. It's a little bit similar to what Victor Vasquez had. I dislocated my knee playing in the football league, and that was a real tough one to come back from. I don't think you're ever the same player after an injury like that.
Yeah, that's definitely tough to hear. But you came back, and you still managed to put together quite a successful career afterwards. So we definitely do commend you for that.
Thanks.
Very admirable, of course.
I wanted to ask a little bit as well from your coaching and playing experience about the new high press Toronto FC is trying to work in here, and in terms of deploying it, especially this season with the fixture congestion and the heat that we've already mentioned. What are kind of the keys from both the player and coach perspective to making sure that's sustainable and they can roll out a system like that every week?
I think the first one is buy-in. And I think everyone has to go, okay, this is the way we're going to go forward. We're pretty much going to the other side of the spectrum from what we had with Greg Vanney. And it's going to be more vertical. It's going to be quick. It's going to lead to turnovers, but that's okay. We're going to be connected. It's going to be fast. We need energy. And these are the kind of words that I associate with where we're going. And I think the guys have to buy into it. And I'd say through preseason, and it's been a difficult one in the first 3 games, I think that box is ticked. And I think your leader, Michael Bradley, you're just seeing that in his game, and it's infectious amongst the squad. I think number 2 now, you have the right pieces for it. And I think that this is where the academy players will see themselves play a pretty big role. I think you need youthfulness, you need energy, a little bit of no fear at times, no bad golf swing, and you're just ready to take this on. And it will become difficult at times, but keep trusting in it. And I think it's a great football discussion, but this is sort of where the game's going. It's a little bit quicker, a little bit more counter pressing, a little bit less of really manipulating the opposition.
Yeah, I think huge for the buy-in that they were able to get that result against Club Leon. Right now, everyone believes that they can do it against one of the best teams in CONCACAF. So that definitely helps Chris Armas drive home his points a little more.
Yeah, of course. We're joined by Terry Dunfield, former TFC midfielder, former Vancouver Whitecap, and of course, as Mitch pointed out at the top, aware of many hats right now. One of those hats, Terry, I enjoyed watching you on the One Soccer broadcast as you were doing your color commentary, and I caught an interesting tidbit from you about this being the golden generation of that we're living in terms of Toronto FC Academy products and the conveyor belt that this team should be, I guess, putting forth. I guess I wanted to ask about that sort of conveyor belt, and I don't want to steal Jeff's question right now.
You're totally going to.
I might.
I have like 6 questions, so just steal that question. Just do it, Mike. I know you want to.
Well, I wanted to ask just where is the academy right now in terms of the global stage? How would you compare that?
Ooh, first I'd say we're spoiled in Ontario, in the GTA, in Toronto in particular. We have just such an array of talent, various backgrounds, a great demographic. Like we're just spoiled with how many good young soccer players we have, and it's not just TFC's academy. It's our work. It's all the work within the community from our partnership clubs and the clubs developing the players that then maybe come into our academy. So it's first I want to say it's a real collective effort. Look at Ralph Prizzo, for example. He didn't join our academy till 14, spent time at North Toronto, and there's definitely some layers to his development. So first, in less words, we just have so much quality in Ontario. Number 2, the resources of MLSC, our training ground, is phenomenal. I'd say the experience of Michael Bradley, Josie Altidore, Jonathan Osorio now, and some of the legacy of guys coming through is important to help really help develop our young players. I think that's important. And Greg Vanny, and it's our methodology is changing a little bit with Chris Armas now, really gave us the tools to push the limits of player development.
Mm-hmm. And I guess sort of building off that, if I look back at the past year, even going back to 2020, Toronto FC have made 8 acquisitions, I believe. 6 of those acquisitions, just off the top of my head, have been homegrown signings. What does that say about the direction that this club's heading?
Ooh, I love it. Hopefully it helps Ali Curtis and the salary cap out too. But it's so cool. We felt it bubbling for a little while now, and I heard Bill Manning say this morning, nothing's been given to our kids. Each player pathway's been a little bit different, and they've really had to earn that opportunity with Greg Vanny or now Chris Armas. And I think it's coming together nice. We talk about Luke Singh, Noble, Ralph, Schaff, Jack, Jaden Nelson, Peruzza. I had to write the list down, and there's
12. 12 names
Yeah.
right now on the first team roster who are homegrown players.
Yeah, and also different, and they're not just making up the roster. I think what we saw in the first couple of games, these guys can contribute and really make a difference. And I think probably if I'm one of those young guys, I remember coming up to the first team when I was young, I was kind of on my own there, and it was about surviving and hanging and trying to win that shirt and keep it. Whereas now these guys kind of have each other to bounce ideas off, push each other. So I think the ingredients is set up for success, sustained success too.
That must be a great thing to have in your toolkit, your experience of moving away to the UK on your own at 15 in your position as an academy coach. I mean, you must have to draw on those memories a lot when you're dealing with these young guns.
Yeah, I'm lucky. I was fortunate that there wasn't an MLS when I was young. So if you want a career, everything led to Europe, and to come through such a good academy like Manchester City's was, again, you're just living day to day when you're in it. But thinking back now, it's great, and I think that's just partly why I got into coaching, was to share some of my experiences and
That's awesome.
the young guys coming through. But it's not just me. We've got Danny Dicchio. He came from that environment. We've got coaches that come from teaching backgrounds, which is important too. So our academy kids are getting a little bit of everything.
That's awesome. That wasn't my question, though. My question is, I'm going to do two questions because Mike stole my question. The first question is, what's one thing that you missed the most from early MLS? Like if MLS 3.8 or wherever we're at right now had to pick one thing from early MLS, please don't say the shootouts, but what would it be?
Ooh, good question. I was lucky when I came in because everything had started to change already. And we already knew that the TFC had everything to be special. And I guess I would have loved to have been part of the TFC that won all the don't get me wrong, there's some tough times, and I'm not going to say we laid the foundations, but it's
yes, you did.
I'd say it was. I would have loved to play or been near that TFC midfield, right? What we've got right now and what it was for the last 4 or 5 seasons.
Cheers. And then part two. Part two. You've been around the club long enough that I can ask my contractually obligated question. Favorite TFC kit, least favorite TFC kit?
Ooh, they were all pretty snug. The Adidas player kit. I don't know. I was always worried about getting in them. I always loved playing in red. I'd always be tackling or fighting someone. So when I played in white, it would always look a mess. So anything in red would be my answer. I guess my one regret was that run we had in the Champions League in 2012, where we got to the semifinals against Santos Laguna. We were up a couple of away goals that we couldn't quite find a way to get over the line there. Maybe that kind of gnaws away at me a little bit.
But you were there, so that.
The guys have put it right since, with all our scalps in Mexico, I guess, since.
Yep.
Well, before we let you go, Terry, the Toronto FC, of course, have a big game this coming weekend against your former club, the Vancouver Whitecaps. What are your thoughts on this game? I mean, a big game for both sides. Vancouver trying to prove they're, starting a new era here, and of course, Toronto FC kind of similar. Two clubs going in, hoping to go in the same direction.
Yeah, good question, man. What's your take on Vancouver? Did you watch their first game?
I did. I mean, it was a pretty exciting start. Same kind of thing as Montreal, Toronto, right? Like the Portland coming off the Champions League, you're not fully sure if they're up to their full standards. But I thought they looked re-energized. The Caicedo looks like he's going to be a really good ad, and Cavallini being able to hit the ground running and not have that stop-start to the season. He looks as dangerous as ever. So I think there'll be a tough match, and obviously with Toronto FC's back line being potentially a little young in this match, Cavallini could be an issue, I think.
Yeah, what a challenge for Luke Singh if he on the side. Follow up Honduran International Kyoto, but right? I agree with you, Mitch. I thought it. I don't know if you guys would agree. I'd say Vancouver were definitely as good or maybe better than Portland, which is a pretty good barometer. They looked a difficult team to play against. It's probably the biggest compliment I could give them. There's no softness to them. I didn't really see a weak link in the side. And I think that they're playing with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. And they've added some quality to the side. I'd like Dahomey inside in that Rayner role. Just gives them a little bit more athleticism, gives Cavallini some legs. I thought young Canadian Baldissimo, he's the player that makes the Whitecaps tick in possession, nice passing range. So if he kind of drops into that back line, Bradley-esque last year, just have to be careful of his range, and he could maybe hurt us. But having said all that, every time we've played Vancouver, we've caused some problems, just kind of overloading their midfield too. I think we can come into the game confidently, and I think a week off for our first team right now will feel like a month. So it's nice rest, and I think both Vancouver and Toronto have done a great job of taking on feedback, their learnings from last year. It's so difficult playing away from home. The fact that Vancouver, and from what I can hear, families are arriving down in Florida, have families there and a little bit more of a routine. I think that that's so important.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it'll be
for sure.
interesting too because when these two teams play, for history it says that usually it's the visiting team that I think struggles a little bit here. But they're gonna be playing on a neutral ground in a way in Florida. I guess it'll be technically Toronto FC's home. But I want to see how that plays out because aside from last season, usually the home side has dominated this fixture in the past. So it'll be kind of a neutral ground where these two teams can just go at it. And I'm interested because Montreal, they showed well for the Canadian side. And I want to see Vancouver, they showed well in the first, their first match. I want to see if they can keep that up. And it'll be a good testament to where Canada soccer is heading.
For sure.
Well
Good
said.
point. I think I love the fact that there's no turf in Vancouver too. I was just rubbing my knees watching that game at Rio Tinto for the players, and maybe from some of our senior players at TFC. I know it's our home game. Not having to go to that turf at BMO Place will be good.
Yeah, but I guess one more before we go up. It's not really a question, more of a comment. I guess it is a little bit of a question. How much do you still think of that goal that you scored against the Vancouver Whitecaps for TFC there? That injury time winner? Because we put it out on our social and, it always gets some good feedback. Do you ever, go back and watch that just for the memories?
100%. I watched it 3 times this morning.
He's got it on a digital photo frame when he leaves his house.
Okay, it's not that. Yeah. So if you ever want to look at the heart of former players, just talk about their career or high points. No, it's fun. It was, how it played out. Coming to Toronto was tough to leave Vancouver, and then there was no spite to it, but it was you love to score against your old teammate, and emotion took over, and it was tough times in Toronto, and I think I kept on running on my own all the way to King Street. I think it was just so much fun, and it's. I remember being in the hot tub after, or the cold tub, cooling down, and it was just sharing a nice moment with Danny Cooperman, who knows how much it meant to me at the time. So it's it's always
amazing,
fun. Especially when you don't score.
Yeah, to follow up to that, because you mentioned running to King Street. I've always wondered, because you had a bit of a knack for running into the stands. I know when you scored for Canada, that one screamer, and again for Vancouver. Were you thinking of running into the stands and realizing you were on a yellow card?
I did, because I started to put my shirt over.
I knew it.
The jersey was too small, and then I remembered I was on a yellow card. And
so it's a good thing you had a tight kit, or you would have been chucked from the game, right? It was that. Yeah.
But it's funny. I don't know if I've said this before. I actually said to Danny Coopermans at the time in his ear, I don't know if you can see it, you go be the hero. I'll set a pick on your guy, and you go score at the near post. But I was way too excited. I turn around, and it's in the top corner. So it's more of the quality of Torsten brings is cross, and then I claimed it, I guess.
Oh, man. Great finish. Great finish, Terry.
Great finish.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much. You've been more than generous with your time, Terry. We really appreciate you coming on the show.
Hey, he called me a former athlete. I'm in heaven. So
thanks
for
Terry. Getting me on too. I've really enjoyed it. Thanks, guys.
Of course, anytime.
Ciao.
Well, that was great. I was pretty happy to. I've always wondered that, because I've watched that clip, as Terry has, a bunch of times, because that was one of the lone bright moments from that slew of terrible seasons was Terry Dunfield's late goal against Vancouver in that game. But yeah, that's some great stories from Terry there, and
that was awesome.
Like to have people like that on.
We had Julian de Guzman on a bit earlier, I guess a couple episodes ago, and he was talking about how much he was struggling a bit there at TFC. And funny enough, the guy that was sort of making him struggle a bit and get some playing time was Terry Dunfield. Terry Dunfield was the one taking his position in the center of the park. So it's funny enough how that stuff like that just comes full circle. And as you guys saw, just top shelf analysis from Terry. Great insight, and we're happy that he's on all the broadcasts too, because the stuff that he can offer is great insight.
Yeah, it's nice to have him taking care of the young guns. It's a match made in heaven, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's talk about some news that broke, shortly before this show. Bill Manning talking to Andy Petrillo of One Soccer, and a bunch of exciting topics there. Oh, I guess we can talk about this as well.
I thought that's what you wanted to talk about.
No, it's fine. We can go there.
Let's go in order. No, that's fine. Let's go in order.
But yeah,
let's talk about the trade. Let's go in order, because that happened before this news drop.
Yeah, no, that works as well. So yeah, absolutely fantastic work from the Toronto FC social team. That goes without saying.
I need that as a poster. I need that behind my head for all future shows. That's too fantastic.
Yeah, Toronto FC making a trade, acquiring some general allocation money, $225,000 worth. That's not right. Yeah,
no, you're good. No,
yeah,
you're
was
good.
it?
Yeah.
Okay. That seems tiny because of the Nick Hagelin trade. I thought Allgam came in multiples of 600K, but all right, cool.
Right, yeah, acquiring an international or sending an international roster spot to FC Dallas for the rest of the season. Critics moneybags Tifo. That's fantastic.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, a simple trade. Obviously, they weren't going to use that spot for this season, so that gives them some space to work with.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic trade for Toronto FC for a couple of reasons. First, of course, it's they're showing their intent to play their homegrown players. We talked about it with Terry. There's 12 homegrown players on this roster, which I'd be surprised if that wasn't top of the league, or at least like near the top of the league, because that's just outstanding. Definitely a different bit of a culture shift from where it's been in the past. And we're also seeing these homegrown players come in and make a difference. So I like how they're trading away that international roster spot for the money, because they are also tied up against the salary cap, the salary budget. And Ali Curtis has voiced that in the past, how it's hard for him to make moves because of how close they are to the salary budget. And now you add $225,000 to that, which is a significant amount of money. I mean, that full-on max contract, I guess let's call it, in MLS comes with a cap hit of around $610,000. So
see,
you're getting
everything's $600,000. I told you.
So you're getting close to almost half of that max contract, which is again just great financial flexibility. Bill Manning has spoken. I guess he spoke to One Sock. I'll get a little bit into this, but he said the team was honing in on a designated player. One player that they liked, and they're honing into that. But one of the challenges that they're debating is, do they wait until the secondary transfer window? Do they wait until when you bring in a player, only half of their salary budget is charged against the cap? So instead of a $600,000 budget or charge, you get a $300,000 charge. Do they wait for that? Also, the flip side to that is TFC are obviously, as we've witnessed, they're in the battle for the CONCACAF Champions League. Right now, their schedule is really congested. It could arguably be the most congested it'll be this season. Is it more important for them right now to bring in that designated player if everything, all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, if they can get him across the line? Does it make more sense to bring him in now? And maybe that allocation money is a step towards that, acquiring him now, because now they have an extra little bit of space to add to their roster. The other way to look at this is maybe TFC go out and they get a defender, because we know at the back there are serious question marks there. And I think John Molinaro of TFC Republic, he had a great piece from Bill Manning, and he said that Manning said that TFC might look at getting a defender. So I wouldn't be surprised for them to spin this salary cap around and get a defender. But either way, you can get a very serviceable player with this amount of money, and you're virtually not giving up much from your roster, because you probably weren't going to use that international roster spot anyways because of the direction you're heading with these homegrown talent. So for me, it's a win-win for TFC, and a great move by the club.
We sold it for a year, so we get it back next season, right? That's my first question.
Yeah.
And how many international spots do we have? Wow, selling it for a year is worth $300,000. Anyway, all our international spots are full now, so we have no extras, or this
I
was
think
like
we
an
have
extra?
one. I think we have one extra spot. I'm not certain about that.
Free
but-
money. That's fantastic, man.
Yes.
That's
So
whatever.
and
Yeah.
there's also another tidbit to this is that Tsubasa
Mm.
Endo is very close to losing that international status, getting his permanent residency here in Canada, and he's going to likely become a homegrown, not a domestic player. So he won't count as one of those international roster spots. Vanny told us at the beginning of last season that he was close to that, and he should be close to the, I guess, losing that status shortly. And well, I lost my train of thought there.
Well, it's a super win. I mean, I don't see anything negative about this. Not a thing.
Yeah, exactly. It is free money there, and this circling back to Tsubasa, if he does lose that I guess international spot, that'll be more valuable to his value on this team. Now that he's not taking up an international roster spot, he's a very usable piece on this Toronto FC team. So keep an eye out on that, and they can also use that last international spot that they have to acquire their designated player.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm
that's
expecting that's where that will head towards. So like you said, Jeff, there's no really downside to making this move. It was just about getting the most amount of money that they could, and for 1 year of giving up an international roster spot, $225,000 coming back that's pretty valuable.
Yeah, my first thought when I saw the general allocation money acquisition was maybe Toronto FC were thinking about Dom Dwyer, who we know is in camp with the club. We don't know in what capacity right now, but I'll just say I did. That was the first thought that crossed my mind. I don't have any inside information on that, but I know Jeff isn't the biggest fan of Mr. Dwyer, but I do think that he'd be a great fit for a Chris Armas system.
He got his green card?
I believe so.
Okay, because otherwise we just traded away a spot that we would use on him.
Yeah,
Right?
I'm not too sure about that, but to me, like, I don't even. Do we need Dom Dwyer?
No.
Like, does Toronto FC need a Dom Dwyer up top? Do they need another, let's say, a Patrick Mullins? I personally don't think that they necessarily.
Hey,
need
wait,
that
hey,
piece.
wait. We can get 2 Patrick Mullinses? I want 2 Patrick Mullinses. That would be fantastic. So
No, but like, you know what I mean? Unless there's another
Mhm.
move in the works where, they want to
Yeah.
move on from a Josie Altidore or an Io Akinola. I really don't see a need to bring in Dom Dwyer, especially if you're going to be bringing in a designated player that's an attacking player. It just, to me, that'll be a surplus of resources there up front, and this team still has needs, especially on the back line with their center backs and their fullbacks. So that'll be a little bit of a head scratcher if TFC decide to use their remaining cap space on Dom Dwyer.
Mitch wants Dom Dwyer.
I do want Dom Dwyer. There are many Vancouver Whitecaps defenders who can tell you why you do not want Dom Dwyer high pressing your team. But but I digress.
Honestly, if you rate him, I've learned not to go against Mitch's tactical ratings. I'm not going to like it, but if he scores 12, then I am. So bring on the Dwyer.
Yeah.
The return of Kyle Larin has brought me a lot of brownie points.
Mitch, really has.
And that's really funny. And Dom Dwyer is also coming off a serious knee injury. I think he missed the most last season. So
he'll fit right in.
He'll fit right in. But on the bench, watching the game, occasionally.
Could they get him for like a league minimum? If he comes in like that, then that's a no-brainer. Add some quality like that to your roster that doesn't really cost you much. Can they get him for something really cheap? If so, again, I think that's a no-brainer. But if he's going to be eating up a bit of cap space, this team doesn't have it. It doesn't have it to have the luxury of carrying a Dom Dwyer.
I mean, if we got him on a Richie, if he's willing to come in for the league minimum because he's a man without a club right now. So, if we could get him on that Orlando cast-off discount, which we seem to be diving into on a regular basis, I'm all for it. I just think he's annoying, and I hate his body language. But what do I know? I'm only an ex-soccer player, according to Terry.
Let's finish up by talking about the Vancouver match a little bit. That'll be at 3 p.m. Eastern this Saturday on TSN. I think one of the big things going to this match is the benefit of having Florida as the home base is already paying dividends. Toronto FC, we've talked at length on this show about how difficult, preseason was, how difficult the stop-start nature of it was, and all the injuries that they've racked up. The fact that they don't have to travel for like the third game really in terms of playing pretty locally in Florida, that's big. That helps them a lot, and I think that helps them in terms of the recovery for this game against Vancouver. Now, like Terry and I were talking about a little bit, Vancouver looked pretty good in their opening game. I don't think this is the Vancouver of last year. They've added some good talent across the board, and some of their talent that didn't quite look great last year, playing better this year. So we'll see. It's a one-game sample size, and again, they were playing a Portland side who, like Toronto FC, were tired, but this will be an interesting one for sure.
Yeah, I think what's important to point out is the turnaround after the match. Is if we were worried about the Wednesday match, TFC
Saturday
play on
Tuesday.
a Tuesday against Cruz Azul after that Saturday match against Vancouver. So lineup-wise, if TFC throw out a strong lineup, I will be absolutely baffled because
I'll be livid. Actually, I'll be livid.
I think their focus again is on the CONCACAF Champions League. Bill Manning, again, on our show in the past, he's told us that's the one trophy that he wants to win. And I think it's the one trophy the club, and I think supporters in general can agree at this point, that's a trophy that we really want. Jeff, you're dying to chime in there.
No, I was just agreeing with you. This is a trophy I desperately want. I will accept losing 8-0 to Montreal for a decade just to be the first MLS club to lift the CCL trophy. My worry is on the flanks again. I mean, they got Ali Adnan. He might terrorize us in the same way that Montreal's wide play terrorized us. And I would really like that not to happen because I want to see some more adaptability, even at this early stage. And like we've all said, free pass mulligan on the Montreal game. But the things that worried me that we saw in the Montreal game could all be dumbed down to tiredness. I mean, the second phase of a lot of Montreal attacks, our guys were stone. Our defenders were stone on that. When Georgie Mihalovic basically took a shot from just inside the box, and half of our defense were ball watching. I want to see some more adaptability, and I think that begins with a lineup that takes into account the slow turnaround and the fact that this is game 2. I mean, what's Agar Akeche up to? Does he want to come back on a 4-day contract? Because this is a perfect game to trot him out again. I don't, free Liam Fraser, striker Jacob Schaffelberg. Let's see it all.
Yeah,
Liam Fraser is a great point. I really want to see Liam Fraser in this game because I actually thought in his late cameo against Montreal, that's some of the best we've seen of him. We know he's a great presser of the ball, and I thought late in that game, his passing range was on point too. And let's not forget, he got cast off a little bit by the Vancouver Whitecaps Academy. And I know for a fact he still has a little bit of bitterness about that. So I'm here for a Liam Fraser revenge game. And again, given the amount of time that all of Toronto FC's other midfielders have spent on the field, and we know some of them are coming back from injury as well, I'd sit a couple of guys and have Liam Fraser out there.
You have
100%.
to. There's a bunch of players in that sort of mix right now that could definitely find their way into the team. I'd like to see some Tsubasa Endo get some minutes. I'd like to see, of course, Jaden Nelson get some minutes. Could we see a little bit more of a look at Jordan Perusa, which shout out to him. He came on for his MLS debut last match. I mean, why not? Why not at this point with the turnaround 3 days later? It just if Liam's going to get in, if Jane's going to get in, if some of these kids are going to get in, now's the game to do it before
100%.
You have starting to have more rested players and you have those choices become tougher.
But no Mullins. We're saving Conca Mullins for Conca Chaos. All right? Conca Mullins is the best Mullins, and we got to keep him fresh to terrorize Cruz Azul. So no Mullins.
I want to know if that Patrick Mullins coming off at halftime. I didn't find out about this, but I want to know if that was a little bit of an injury related kind of substitution. Obviously, he had to make some tactical adjustments, but he brought on Perusa, who really kind of offered the similar sort of thing that Mullins
Very
offered.
similar.
right?
Very
They
similar.
didn't play a completely drastic role. We didn't see Perusa shift off to either side. They really both stayed central. And I want to know, because Mullins came off at halftime. Perhaps that was a little bit of a knock that he picked up, but I don't want to speculate too much.
I mean, we don't even have to speculate. The answer is always yes. I mean, at this point, it's just what got injured. It's not, is he injured? Of course he's injured. It's everybody on the team's injured, but it's, you know, it's what's the prognosis and when could it come back.
And that's true too. I mean, if their TFC aren't going to give us the information, as they've been really tight-lipped about their injuries this season, then we will speculate, because what else do we have to go off?
All signs point to stretchers, my friend. All signs point to stretchers.
Especially
and
in
again,
CONCACAF.
to go back to Ryan's absolutely terrific article. I mean, he straight up compared TFC to Liverpool first year Klopp took over, right? And you know, that coming off of Brendan Rodgers, it's very, very similar to what we're facing right now. Brendan Rodgers was a slow, tactical, kind of possession heavy system, and Klopp was, you know, heavy metal Scorpions football. So what member of Liverpool wasn't injured in 2015 when Klopp took over? It was crazy. I mean, they were going down like dominoes. So recent history suggests we're going to get a lot more of this. So, you know, buckle up, especially, you know, with the training being what it is. And let's not forget, Florida sucks. So, you know, these guys are going to be sweating out their body weight in the first 20 minutes that they're out there. And then I heard something else, and I don't know enough details, but I did hear this for the first time this week, that not all of our training staff is there, and that there's a lot of Zoom conversations where, you know, you're looking at spreadsheets and stuff like that, but the players aren't really getting one-on-one sessions with the entirety of our training staff. That's a concern as well. And again, you know, let's confirm or deny it. I could be talking out of my bum, but you know, I did see it. So yeah, but yeah, just to circle back, I think the Vancouver game is an Aguirre special. Houston, 2018. Let's hope it doesn't go 5-0. But if it does, are we that upset about it? I want Cruz Azul.
Well, even so, I don't think this team has what it takes to lose a match 5-0. Like, hold on. Let me finish. I don't think this team.
Someone's clipping that in Vancouver.
The starting point, at least going into that match, when they played Houston, everyone was like, "Oh no, like this is going to go horribly wrong." If you put out TFC's young guns and some of their Luke Singh at the back, there's a chance that we win that game still. And I think that's just a testament to how far the academy's come in just 2-3 years. Because
fair point,
when you're looking back at that Houston game, you call it like the Aguirre game, that's not a winnable game by any means. I still think TFC's young guns, if you play them this season, like, they can win games in this league. I really do believe that.
Yeah, good point being made. Sorry, yeah, I was going to get to that as well. A good point being made about the 5 subs, which I actually think will be critical this year for Toronto FC in terms of their pressing style, and also something that Armas has been using to, you know, a way that we didn't really see Greg Vanny use certainly in the past. And he's going to have to, I think he's going to have to really reach into the depth of his squad, and we're going to see a lot of, you know, mid-game tactical adjustments, just because he's going to have guys run, you know, their butts off for 45 minutes, and then obviously they're going to get tired. So I think we'll see the 5 subs used a lot, and for this year especially, I think it's a massive help for Armas and Toronto FC.
Does that
I love 5 subs. I want it forever. I want to give 5 subs a forever home. I mean, when you look, because honestly, like the benches, you know, MLS, we don't really have the kind of depth that Europe has, but you know, how is this a bad thing? I mean, when a team comes up with a bench that would slaughter the starting 11 in most other leagues, and now you get a chance to see 2 more of them. I like it. I really do.
Yeah, and hey, we'll talk about this a lot more on Tuesday, because we have a pregame show for that Cruz Azul match. But this upcoming Saturday, does that mean we get to see more Jaquil Marcerudi?
I hope so.
If that's the case, man, sign me up. Give me front row. I've been dying to see more of this kid, because, man, everything that I've heard, everything that I've seen so far, I've just been thoroughly impressed, and I just want to see more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, No,
I like
for
that
sure.
nickname, Jack. Jack's a good nickname.
Mhm.
It is a good nickname, yeah.
Yeah.
And again, like this game's no different. The thing that always impresses me about Jaquil Marshall-Rutty is not, the wild dribbling ability or anything like that, right? Like he obviously has that natural talent, but it's the smart little pass to Richie where there's that separation created, right? Like Richie, it allows Richie to make that turn because it's in the perfect spot away from the defender. It's the subtle movement. Like this guy understands the game like no 16-year-old I've ever seen in Canadian soccer.
Except for me
And-
when I was 16.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, all
There
the
was-
McDoubles that you were getting as rewards for your great tactical nuance. But yeah, no, I just you don't usually see that. Like you don't usually see players of his age dominate a game with their soccer intelligence. It's usually, just either they're physically bigger than the other kids or they have some kind of skills that set them apart. And obviously, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to go anywhere. So yeah, again, just so impressed by Jaquil Marshall-Rutty, and I think we're going to see a decent amount of him this season.
Yeah, Chris Armas said that he earned those minutes. It wasn't just given to him. So that's a really good point there. I think we will see more of Jaquil Marshall-Rutty. Like I think Armas said he earned those minutes in training. So again, like I'm super excited to see what we're going to see out of him. And there was a play on Saturday. I guess this was the last match. Was he? That's awesome, Brady. JPN's greater than JMR. But there was a play on Saturday where Jaquil picked up the ball on the right side of the field from our angle, and he connected with about 3 or 4 of his players. He might have beaten a guy through it too, and he ended up, I guess, in the middle of the park, and then he ended up on the left side, and then he ended up moving forward. And he just found those spaces quicker than any of his Toronto FC's teammates found those spaces. He knew where the ball should have been played, if everyone was sort of on the same page. And if everyone was on Jaquil's page, that would have looked absolutely magical. After that play didn't come to fruition, instead of sort of just going straight to his position, he found another pocket of space between the striker and the right midfield, which was Richie Larea stepping up at the time. He found another pocket of space there. And just some of the runs he makes just so intelligent. Instead of going straight down the line all the time, he's waiting till the exact right time. And then you cut across the defender, you cut inside, and you give them a different lane to kind of run through. And again, like in MLS, we don't really see those intricacies. We don't see that level of thinking, that level of thought process, just the little things that he does. And he's also just so, as Terry said, he's so solid, so technical. He doesn't look like he's going to miss a pass. He always looks like his touch is going to be sure. So yeah, man, just so many reasons why I'm so hyped about this kid.
I think it's impossible for the veterans on TFC to get on Jack's page because it would be a TikTok homepage and it would be totally esoteric. The kid's 16 years old. There's no way they're going to understand his page, so to speak. Also, let's what are we going to call Richie's super move, his finishing move, that dancey step over thing that's just so delightful? Does it have a technical name, or do we get to name it?
All you, Jeff. You're the name person here. This guy comes up with all of our show titles.
They don't even know what I'm talking about right now. Mitchell was raving about it. That move that he does, where he does like a little spinorama around the guy.
Yeah, no, I do know what you mean. It's the move that we've seen it. We saw it twice against Club Leon, and we've also seen it on that goal he scored against CF Montreal, where
it's devastating. Yeah,
he uses his body to separate himself from the ball or separate himself from the opposing player and shield the ball, and then he just turns the guy the opposite way the guy's going. And again, I mean, it's another thing Richie has in the locker and why he's looked so dangerous this season is he can just beat players so simply like that. It's such a simple move, but so incredibly effective.
Yeah.
He's
not all just pace. Like everyone knows Richie Larea for how fast he is, how well he can dribble, but that's just a testament to how strong he is too. And people say that Richie Larea can't play in tight areas. He can't make decisions like on the European level that some of these other guys can. I think he's showing that he can. He can keep the ball under pressure. And again, in MLS, if you're able to do that, you're going to do well in this league, and let alone his physical attributes that he can bring to the game.
Yeah, reminds me of Robin. I mean, that same move, like You knew he was always going to cut in and take a shot from just at the tip of the box. No, everybody knew it. You could game plan around it. It did not matter. He was still going to score on you. So, that's a really nice thing to have. I'm a big fan of Richie.
Yeah. All right, gents. We're episode 40. We're about
Holy
40
crap.
minutes over. Danny, what's going on? We see you there in the comments. Let's
Bye,
wrap
Danny.
things up here.
We'll see you next week.
Absolutely, yeah. 40th episode in the books. Obviously, huge thank you to everyone who continues.
Hey,
to
we can get our
make this
vaccine now.
possible every week. Oh yeah, we're over 40.
Yeah, we're
Let's
40.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah, do get your vaccine though if you're over 40. Obviously, get booking, get out there, get vaccinated. Thank you to the whole crew though that makes this possible. Kevin, Sophia, Edwin doing behind the scenes stuff. Thank you to Terry Dunfield for coming on today's show. That was an awesome chat. Of course, all of you for listening and interacting throughout. Make sure you guys check out the new post-game show as well that mostly Jeff and Michael will be doing. We'll have a revolving number of casts. Hopefully I'll get myself on there a couple of times as well.
Wait.
But
Yeah.
around 30 minutes after the final whistle of every Toronto FC game, we'll be going live, giving you instant reactions and thoughts on the post-game press conference, plenty more. So stay tuned to the Waking the Red and Footy Talk socials for that. Till next Tuesday, have a great week, everyone.
Ciao.